Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another one of our shows on Facebook Live to update you on COVID-19 related issues. For tonight's show, there's really only one main program that has had several changes that we want to bring some attention to since our last update last Thursday, and that's going to be on the commercial rent assistance program. So I'll talk a little bit about that tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about as well a neat new tool that's available for you to navigate the different programs that are now available through the Government of Canada for various income support programs. And we're going to take a minute to update you on what's left for the parliamentary calendar, at least going into the summer months. So I'll give you kind of an update as to what's happening there as far as Parliament. You may see tonight that I'm actually broadcasting from my office here on the, well, you wouldn't know it's actually in West Block, but I'm in the West Block office just off the corner of the House of Commons. This is my office where I is designated for one of the three chair occupants that support Speaker Rhoda in his work in the House of Commons. So I'm there tonight, and I was at work in the House of Commons through till just shortly after 2 o'clock. So not enough time to get home this afternoon back to Simcoe North. So I decided to stay here and get tonight's show done with. So we will finish off this evening with a little update as well as to what's happening next for our Facebook Live programs, but that'll come after our questions for tonight. So I'm going to flip over to Curtis as he usually does. Curtis is my executive assistant in the riding, and he will be our moderator on the call tonight. And Curtis, you usually give us a little update, some guidance for our viewers here tonight on when it comes to question time. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Bruce, and good evening, everybody. So as with the previous broadcast, we're going to do those updates, and then we'll switch over to questions. If you do have any questions at any point during the broadcast, make sure you're putting them in the comment section of the stream. Please keep them as brief as possible. We want to make sure that we're able to get them up on the screen so everyone can see them. And then as well, make sure you're not including any personal information. We just want to make sure we're protecting your privacy. And if we don't get to your question for whatever reason by the end of the broadcast, we will follow up with you. It is recorded, so we do see those comments, and we will connect with you after the broadcast. We'll go back over to Bruce now. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Curtis. Et comme d'habitude, nous pouvons poser vos questions en français ou en anglais. Certainement, je vais prendre le temps pour répondre en français si vous avez posé cette question. We're going to try and do our best to wrap up by around 7:45 or tonight, and the last few shows have shown that we can get through the questions on that, but that's what we're here for, and so I really look forward to your questions at the end of the show. So let's get started. We're going to go to the one big update we have this week has to do with a program that we did announce earlier several weeks ago. It's going to be handled, actually delivered by the Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation, and it's called the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program. Now, this is specifically for small businesses that are essentially leasing their location from a property owner, a landlord in this case, and it's for small businesses that have been impacted negatively by the COVID-19 restrictions. So what do you need to do to be one of those businesses? Well, you have to pay less than $50,000 a month in rent and have no more than $20 million a year in gross annual revenues. Now, those are very high numbers, and I expect certainly across Simcoe North, literally 95% of our businesses that lease locations will certainly well below that. And you've had to have had at least a 70% decline in your revenues since in the periods of, this is measuring the months of April May, and June. So those are the 3 months that this program covers, only the rents for those 3 months. So if you've had an average decline of 70% in your revenues over that 3-month period compared with the 3 months prior in 2019, then you're eligible for the program. If for some reason you didn't have sales in those 3 months in 2019, you have the option of using the comparator of January and February in 2020 as the reference point if you wish. Now, it should be noted here that any business that started after March 1st of this year, they wouldn't be eligible for this program. What kind of support does it provide? And the money actually goes to the landlord so that the landlord can provide you with a break on your rent. I'll explain that in a minute. So what it does, it's a forgivable loan to the landlord of equal to 50% of what they would normally bring in rental revenue. The landlord, in turn, gives a break of 25%, of 75% to the tenant. The tenant would still pay 25%, and for that loan that the landlord gets of 50% of the rent, that becomes forgivable. So really, the landlord is pitching in 25%. The tenant pitches in 25% of the rent during those 3 months, and the landlord gets a 50% a loan, a forgivable loan for the rest, and for which that landlord can use. They can use that money to pay for their fixed costs and even for the provision of the reduced rent that they're giving their small business tenant. So applications for these 3 months are open. You can apply up to as late as August 31st of this year. It still applies just for those 3 months, April, May, and June. And that portal is open now at CMHC. Now, there are some restrictions on what time of the week you can apply if you're a landlord and you want to get this set up. If you have 10 or less tenants, you can apply on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Friday. And if you have more than 10 tenants that you're looking at, you'll need to look only at Wednesday or Friday, if assuming all of our tenants or landlords, I should say, are here in Ontario. What kind of businesses can they be? If you have a commercial property that's a multi-unit residential, kind of a mixed-use type property, as long as there's small business tenants in that property and they have been impacted by COVID-19, then they would be eligible. It does require landlords to go into an agreement to make sure that all of this is done in a proper way. They enter into an agreement with their tenant, includes a moratorium on any evictions for those 3 months. It has to be, you have to declare what the rental amount is, and the landlords are unable, they can't, for example, give forgiveness of that 75% now and then somehow add it back on after the month of June. So that's not on, and so you as a tenant are protected against that. Now, there are some restrictions around, and this has been noted in some of our previous questions. If you're a municipally owned property or if you're a government type property, normally government landlords will not be eligible for this program. The one exception there is for First Nations or Indigenous governments or organizations. They will be eligible to get the commercial rent assistance if they have a small business tenant holding their property. So that's about it for the rental assistance program. As I say, this is a real help. The discretion does go to the landlord. No doubt they have to decide whether it's worth doing that. And some landlords, we have heard just anecdotally, are unable to do it. But that's the lowdown on the rental assistance program. Now, let's go to some other, there haven't been too much in the way of other changes here, but over the last few weeks, we've described a number of programs that are really helpful in supporting people's income. helping them with the kind of programs that they need to get through. It's all about, keeping people's livelihoods a bit on hold here so they can still pay the bills until we get to a point where we can get back and reopen the economy. So we've talked about everything from CERB to the Canada wage, the wage emergency wage subsidy, the business account with the $40,000 loan. I know all these programs are available now. If you're a business or a worker, a business owner, these are all things that you can look at to help get through this. Albeit we recognize this is a temporary period. We know we're going to get to a point in time where we're going to have to get back into operation and reopen our economy. So I was mentioning there's this really new tool that you can use that the Government of Canada has made available on their website now, and it's called the Benefit Finder, COVID-19 Benefit Finder. You can see it there. You can go online and find that thing. And depending on what your circumstances are, you can go through and select to get to the programs that are suited to your particular needs. So we have this fancy little movie that we're going to run here right now. And I think if I can make sure that my microphone is still working, you can see this is what it looks like when you log on. You've got a financial result there. Find the help that you need. You go to that button, just go to the Find Help button. There you go. Choose the province. Of course, we are in Ontario, and then you go through a series of slides to basically choose the particular circumstances that you are in. What is your situation? Lost your job, self-employed, some of the other factors there. You choose the items that most apply to you. And there's a series of questions talking about your housing and mortgage situation, with your rent, whether you have the Canada Child Benefit, you've got children in the household, and whether you're receiving that benefit, whether you're a student, and whether you have loans in particular that are outstanding, and any plans that you have for schooling. Are you a recent graduate or going to school in September? Are you a senior? Are you getting old age security or the allowance if you're between age 60 and 64? And there you are. I mean, based on the selections that this particular selection was, I mean, we end up with 3 results. And below those results are more links and explanations of what each of those programs provide for you. So you just go down, choose the one that you would like to know a little bit more about, and then click on those links, and away you go. So this, I must say, I think the workers here in the various departments of the Government of Canada have done a good job trying to make this as useful as possible. Of course, it's all online, so for those who are a little unfamiliar or a little nervous about using the online resources, you have us to help you with that as well. Give us a ring. We'd be happy to step you through it. And if you can get, for example, borrow a family member or another computer resource anywhere in the riding, we can help step you through that. So that's another tool that's out there for you. Now, moving on to Parliament, one of the reasons I'm here this week, actually, on Tuesday of this week, Parliament. Well, let me back up. We're in the first of what would normally have been the final 4 weeks of the spring parliamentary term, starting literally the week after the long weekend in May and running right through till the 3rd week of June. So the normal date of the recall of Parliament was May 25th, which was this past Monday. So the House came back and it basically passed a motion on the Tuesday. It was a motion that not all parties supported, but nonetheless, a majority did. And so the House basically adopted a motion that we call a programming motion, and it puts in place the rules and the schedule around which the House will sit between now and the 21st of September. So over the next 4 weeks, including this week, the House sits on a Monday to Thursday from noon until about 2:30 or so, and has a defined business around period for a time for members to pose questions to ministers. As you've seen that, probably it's a 5-minute round. What's really unique about our system here is because, look, there's health restrictions that prevent the number of people from being in the House of Commons because of social distancing and so on. We need to follow those recommendations. So there's about 50 MPs maximum in the House, and they're divided in proportion to the party representations in the House. But every other MP can actually join in the proceedings that happen between noon and 2 o'clock by a conference. So they can get on a Zoom call. It's a Zoom platform that we use. And every member has the ability to participate in those proceedings by tuning in through Zoom. And that's a practice place. The House has really done a lot to put that in place. And I will say that I think there will come a time where, even when we get into the fall, where it will be necessary to get more of the faculty of parliamentary tools that we have available to us as MPs and parliamentarians, that all of those can be used using this temporary combination of, they call it a hybrid system, some members in person in the House of Commons and all others able to participate by video conference. So we got to get our processes in place for things like voting, but every other part of the daily program that we run in Parliament is capable of being used in this way. And my final thought on that is, I will say, to be sure, nothing can replace the actual in-person sessions of Parliament. We know that Zoom is a great technology, but it doesn't replace being in person. And that human interaction still reigns supreme in my case. But for health reasons and to make sure that we keep people safe, we've got to abide by the health restrictions that are in place. So that's a little update on Parliament. Now I'm going to flip over to Curtis at this point. I wanted to give you an update on what we're doing with our offices, because now that Ontario is opening up more office retail spaces for customers and constituents, in our case, to be able to interact. We've been busy the last couple of weeks getting ready for an opening of sorts, even with some restrictions. So I'm going to turn over to Curtis at this point to give you an idea of what that looks like. Go ahead.
Thank you, Bruce. So, as Bruce mentioned, like many businesses in Simcoe North, we are in the process of getting ready to reopen and doing so safely for both the staff and constituents here in the riding. So, we're still in the process of finalizing that reopening plan. Right now, we're reconfiguring the offices to make sure that they are safe for anybody that will be coming in, and that includes installing things like safety shields. You may have seen some of those at the grocery stores. So, those are going to be types of things we'll have on our counters. We're also in the process of, like many businesses, securing PPE from local suppliers. So this includes everything like masks, gloves, face shields, and then also cleaners and disinfectants to ensure that we are able to keep the environment clean and safe for anybody coming in. Part of this plan is going to be implementing many policies and practices that are new to ensure that we can keep this a safe environment. So one of those things will be making the offices open to the public for in-person visits by appointment. And then we will be limiting the number of constituents in the office at one time, just to make sure that we are minimizing any risk of spreading COVID-19. Staff will also make sure they're doing a pre-screening test, similar to the ones that are found on public health authority websites. Just with every person calling in, that will be doing an appointment just to make sure that they aren't displaying any symptoms of COVID-19. We will also have a procedure in place for contactless pickup. So this could be anything like regular documents people come to the office for. So tax packages, passport applications, CPP and OAS applications, all of that we can make available either by mailing it to you, or if you want to come to the office but you don't want to be interacting with anyone, we can make sure that we're putting that in an envelope and leaving that in a case outside the door for you. And on top of that as well, we will be making sure that the offices are cleaned quite regularly, and then making sure that we are disinfecting after each person visits the office. That way there's no chance of spreading that COVID-19 to anybody who's coming in after another person has just visited us. So we are, like I said, in the process of finalizing this plan. We'll hopefully have everything in place in the coming days. And then we will be communicating out shortly that reopening plan, including the dates of when we will start accepting appointments in person. So stay tuned for more information on that, and I will pass it back over to Bruce.
Thanks very much, Curtis. I know that our team is raring to go to get back to normal. I mean, there's no doubt we've been very busy with calls and emails and keeping up. I mean, and there has been cases other than just COVID-19 related cases. So we're doing our best to serve you despite the restrictions that we have in place. So now let's go to your questions, and I think we've had a few questions here so far. So the first one up, Haley is asking, why can't Parliament move ahead via satellite / internet? In fact, Haley, that's exactly what we are doing. Each MP, what we've done is make sure that every MP has the equipment and the connection that they need to be able to participate over an internet type connection. So we use the Zoom software. So they're given a link ahead of when the meeting will actually take place. They go to click that link, and then that adds them into the meeting, and they can watch the proceedings. They can also participate in them. Some parts of the meeting, I mean, typically what happens on things like presenting petitions or making members' statements, much like we do in the House of Commons, like there's 15 minutes for member statements, so the parties will decide which of their members is going to do a 1-minute statement during that period. But we have that every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So every day, 15 member statements, 95 minutes of exchange for members, including members of the government party, the Liberal Party, but it's mostly for opposition members, but members can pose questions to various ministers. And this is a change actually with the new order. Up until this week, all of those questions had to be on the subject of COVID-19. The new order now provides that members can ask questions on other subjects as well. So that's why you're going to see it's more like a question period where the exchange happens between the member and the minister, and they can kind of go back and forth, question and response for a period of 5 minutes, and then we move on to the next one. That's what I was doing this afternoon, actually, just before we wrapped up at 2:15. So yeah, I'm quite impressed. The team here at the House of Commons has done a good job getting all of that functioning and to a broadcast quality. You can watch this on Parlview or on CPAC by streaming it on your computer or on your television. Question from Glenn. Would really like to know why there's no extra assistance for people on disability pensions. Really good question there, Glenn. There's no doubt of all of the suite of programs that have come out under this program, they've been by and large designed for people for whom their regular income or livelihoods have been interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and then the ensuing restrictions that have been put on our communities, stores closing, to particular non-essential businesses essentially ordered to close. So this, because of that income loss, these programs are designed to help people not replace all of it, but enough that they can kind of get by until we can get going again. So that's the basis of it. So if you're on a disability pension, the premise is that your disability pension continues. There's no interruption there. There was one measure that would have been a benefit to you. That was most likely the people who get a GST HST credit once a year. That GST tax credit was doubled in the month of April, and so there would have been up to $400 for people. Anybody who regularly gets a GST, HST credit, they would have got had that doubled in the month of April, and up to I think it was $300. 400. That also was $400 for single people, and up to $600 for couples. Thanks for that, Glenn. Question from Yvette. A comment actually. How do we get credit card interest rates down to something manageable for people? Yeah, so that's a general comment, and we live in a country where we've got a pretty healthy banking system. And what we tell our constituents time and again, look, the banks are in the business of offering things like credit card products, lines of credit, loans, mortgages, all of the various things. And even now, banks will offer things like insurance and other consumer financial services. What we always recommend is, yes, there are some very high limits in terms of what credit card companies and banks can charge in interest, but you're seeing them up in the range of like 19, 21%. Like that's a killer interest rate. So what we recommend for people is to shop around for the credit products that you are looking for. There's lots of choices out there. If you're unhappy with the credit card that you're currently using, stop using it. Talk to your bank, talk to other banks until you can get a product that's going to suit you just right. And insofar as the cost to business, there has been some work done on the kind of credit card charges that businesses pay for the use of credit cards as well, and that's an ongoing thing. Suffice to say, it is competitive, but we've got to make sure that there's lots of choice there for businesses and customers. Linda is asking, what date will the $500 OAS GIS benefit come out? Great question there, Linda. So that's going to come out very soon. What Linda's talking about there is in $500, if you're on old age security, you're getting your monthly old age security check. What was announced was you'll get a top up of $300 on that check. It'll be the one that likely comes out our first check in June. So it's coming very, very soon. I asked this question of a minister only about 2 weeks ago. At that time, they said late May, early June, in the next several weeks. So it's going to be arriving shortly. It was $300 if you're on old age security, $200 if you also get the guaranteed income supplement. So that could total $500. So that'll be coming soon, Linda. Question from Peter. Any chance you could make a call to the Trent Severn Waterways to get to put a log back in to raise the water levels on Lake Simcoe and Couchiching? Peter's noting here they're about a foot down from normal spring levels. Peter, you're absolutely right. This has been an extremely unusual spring for all of the Trent Severn Waterway. Not just, yes, it's unusual because of the pandemic that we're all sort of confronted with, but the weather this spring was left us with little to no normal spring runoff season. So I would direct you to, there's a very, very good website you can go to, Trent Severn Water Levels. If you Google that, there's a really good tool there where you can go and see the actual water levels and where they sit in relation to, on Lake Simcoe and Lake Couchiching, what is called the rule curve. And in fact, I might have time here if I can pull that up. In fact, I might even ask Curtis if he can sort of have a look at that, pull that up and see where it is. And we might even be able to give you some thoughts on sort of where that sits. But it gives you sort of a graph of where the actual level sits in relation to both the maximum and the minimum for this time of year. But you rightly point out it's well below. As we get into the season, it's not uncustomary that if we've had a drier than normal spring, history has shown that comes back to balance itself out, and we get a little bit more rain later in the year, and it comes back to normal. So there's always a bit of a high and low with that. But stay in touch. In terms of a log, we can't, they'll regulate the water there to what they need for navigation, and also to follow that rule curve, because that has been historically the best way to make sure that we avoid any kind of flooding, but also make sure there's sufficient water in the lakes. David is asking, last week I mentioned there would be federal funding for rural internet initiatives. How do we ensure that our municipality is part of that initiative? Great point. I mentioned it certainly as a general comment. We're yet to see what shape that is going to take in terms of specifics. There is a program running now, the federal government, about $500 million called Connect Canada, and the Conservative Party is actually doing some consulting on their internet broadband proposals and ideas for the government currently as well. If you contact our office, I can get you some information on that. But coming up soon, the County of Simcoe is a partner in what's called the Southwestern Integrated Fiber Technology Project. That's going to roll out, we're in phase 3 in Simcoe County, so that's going to roll out. It's about a $220 million program that will see some additional towers in for over-the-air broadband in regions of our county that are under-serviced for internet. And those towers will be served by fiber optic cabling. And so they'll have lots of capacity to get internet to your individual location. But once we get those to the towers, of course, other internet service providers will provide products that will get you over a modem that you can connect with those towers. We're yet to see the specifics on that. But we can get you some more information and some options if you give us a call. But for people in rural parts of Canada, this is going to be a massive need. We've seen that with homeschooling, with the necessity of people staying in touch with the programs that they need. And coming down the road here very soon is 5G technology that we'll need for things like autonomous vehicles. So this is coming. And so 5G has to be built on top of the current internet apparatus that we have in place. So everything pointing to more investments. Specifics will come, and as soon as we have that, we'll get that out to you. Question from Stefan. Regarding CERB, has a resident who is experiencing hardship, unsure if they qualify for CERB. I understand no one is denied on an application, but if there's a mistake in eligibility, what's the fallout? Excellent question. Stefan is right. I mean, you go to the CERB website and go and apply, and that's a 16-week benefit. So you will have had to meet the requirements of CERB, mainly that you've lost your job because of COVID-19. You will have had to have at least $5,000 of income in the past year, but currently are out of work because of COVID-19. You would meet the requirements for CERB. That gives you a $2,000 per month benefit. And you can still earn up to $1,000 per month and still keep that $2,000 a month benefit. But Stefan raises an interesting point. What happens if, let's say, you apply for CERB and then you realize after the fact that, oh gosh, I'm really not eligible, and now I've got this check from the Government of Canada for $2,000. What you need to do is send the money back. There is, I know it sounds weird, but in order to not be at all responsible for that overpayment, there's a system, in fact, it describes it very well on the website, that you basically just send that payment back to the Receiver General for Canada. Again, give us a call. We can help you and step you through that process. The same can happen if you're getting the CERB benefit and all of a sudden you come into some new work. And you earn more than $1,000 a month. Well, now your $2,000 payment from CERB is not eligible, so you need to send that money back. Final point on CERB here, and Stefan's point, keep in mind that the money that you get on the CERB payment, that's the $2,000 a month or $500 a week, on that payment, none of it, there's no tax deducted from that when you see it. Oh, that's my phone here. Let me turn that off. That's an annoying thing. when you get that, you will still be taxed on that benefit at the end of the year. So when you file your 2020 tax return, the money that you got through CERB is still going to show up as taxable income. So just keep that in mind. So Stefan, if there's anything else on that, I'd be happy to give us a shout, but have your constituent give us a shout and we'd be happy to help with that. Sylvia is asking, will there be a vote of non-confidence? Okay, so I'm assuming that Sylvia is asking about the issues relating to Parliament. So currently, right now, there is no way that there can be a vote of non-confidence in the government because there's no real agreed system for voting. It won't be until we can actually restore all of the faculties of the normal daily, weekly program of Parliament, that will be possible. So Sylvia points to a reality that this is currently a Parliament where the Liberal Party, that is the government of the day, does not have a majority of the seats in the House. So even the same as getting this order passed this week to put the programming in place between now and the end of the summer, they basically had to have the support of at least one other party to carry that proposal. And once that was voted upon, in this case, the New Democratic Party teamed up with the government party to essentially pass that motion, and the rest of the House must abide by the terms of that motion. So nothing can happen on that, certainly before September. I really don't expect any changes with that. In my earlier comments, I noted that we will be sitting Monday to Thursday, noon to about 2:30 every day until about the 18th of June. What's also included in that order is 4 individual days in the summer. So we're going to have sittings throughout the summer on 4 individual days as well. Comment from Shona with respect to the Canada Summer Jobs Program. Shona, yes, I thank you for staying in touch with our office on this. We are pressing Service Canada to get the lead out on getting these decisions made. They continue to tell us everything's on the table. The jobs that we had a chance to see some of what was proposed here, and that was all sent back in. And from our standpoint, we were in complete agreement with what had been proposed. Sent that back in, and that included Happy at Home, I believe, and we're that everything should be in good shape there. But we've yet to, until we get that final sign off there, we're not able to sort of give you a final okay with that. So anyway, let's see. I think we'll probably wrap up at that. We're pretty close to the end. I mean, some really good questions here tonight, folks. And before we sort of carry on to just sort of close the show, I mentioned earlier on this was our last of our weekly series of Facebook Live. But over the past few weeks, we've worked on trying to get this to be an informative show that we think people might find helpful. And so instead of doing them weekly, since many of the programs are already in now and not a lot of changes coming down the pike at this point, we're going to move to doing a monthly town hall, a virtual town hall on Facebook Live. We'll be advertising that on Facebook as well as other means through our regular communications that come out of my office. We will be letting people know when there will be a Facebook Live town hall. And during that one, conceivably a longer one, maybe up to an hour or so, we'll do some opening comments and then answer your questions. And we'll do so in an interactive way, just like this over Facebook. So we will be back to you as soon as we have a date, but I'm hoping we'll do our first one of our monthly program in the month of June, and then of course throughout the summer thereafter. So I think we're going to close off with a little bit of our usual ways. Just a reminder that our offices remain open to you 9 to 4:30 each and every day. My staff is there. They're a great crew. They are there to serve you, take your calls, questions, help with any of the programs, not just COVID-19. We are all doing our best to keep social distancing as well, and physical distancing to reduce the possibility of the virus spread. Curtis talked about that a little bit earlier on. And there's our contact information. You can reach us either in Midland or in Orillia at those locations and at those numbers, and email me at bruce.stanton@parle.gc.ca. And I want to sort of thank our crew for tonight. This show wouldn't be possible without David and Curtis, who help out on our show each week. David is the director of the show, pulls all the inputs together and makes sure that all of the technical aspects of that flow properly. And of course, you've seen Curtis and my contributions. Curtis helps me, by the way, in getting a lot of the details, the sort of the content side of the show pulled together as well. So I want to thank them. And sign off in our usual way with a real shout out to our local community, people who are there stocking our shelves, being on the front lines, serving in healthcare facilities and serving people who are ill. We owe all of them a debt of gratitude across our community. We may not have been affected by COVID-19 as much as some parts of Ontario as we watch to see how the case numbers show up across the province. But rest assured, places like OSMH and GBGH and RVH and all of the people that are serving the vulnerable, working in food banks and in shelters, all of the things that are helping people in our community get through this very unusual period for all of us. So I want to salute all of you and thank all of our viewers tonight for tuning in. Stand by for our monthly program that will be starting in several weeks' time. So stay well, stay safe, and have a good night.